Welcome back to the Digital Ledger, everybody. Please hit the like and subscribe. If you like the content you hear and watch here, please share it on your social media platforms. Let's get as many people in on this channel as possible. I wanted to put together a video from a notion that I've had from years ago that is beginning to surface back on my front of my mind and back on the table of speculation again. This information that I'm showing you right here, U.S. financial regulators join UK FCA's global sandboxes from October 24th, 2019. Now, a regulatory sandbox and a global sandbox domestically, internationally, is something that I've been calling for or saying that we need in order to move forward. Well, we already have one on an international level. This article came from Michael McDaniel. It was from a different publication, but I couldn't get that link to open. So I found another publication here from CoinDesk, but the information came back around from Michael McDaniel in the XRP Deep Dive group and Mickey B. Fresh. Thank you to everybody in the Deep Dive group, including those two gentlemen. So let's keep this moving. So I want to lay out some information for you, and I want you to bear with me and just give me the time to lay this thing out for you and pose this question, this speculation of where we may go or potentially could go with XRP, the asset. Seeing this global innovation network and international alliance of government regulators being formed. Now, this includes the SEC, the CFTC, the OCC, recently appointed Brian Brooks from Coinbase to head the entire comptroller of currency, which oversees the entire banking system in the United States of America. And the FDIC, which is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, insures all your banking systems, all your banks in the banking system, I should say. As well as the FCA, which is the Financial Conduct Authority out of the UK. Now, this has all been done to create a global sandbox for financial innovations, which is very good for crypto blockchain technology, obviously, right? Interested in studying cross-border solutions, distributed ledger technology to initial coin offerings. These are the regular tenets of the crypto space, were front of mind for some of the members that had already begun implementing cross-border payments channels. Now, again, this is from October of 2019. I'm just setting the path here for the conversation to go. So there is a global orchestration. We know this from seeing this entity. We know this from seeing the global consortium put together from the World Economic Forum on digital currency. We know this from seeing all the other evidence that's been shown to us from those entities and so many more. Let's move to the next piece because I want to take us to a question. Chainalysis. Building trust in blockchains. They create transparency across blockchains so government agencies, cryptocurrency businesses, and financial institutions can engage confidently with crypto. They are already partnered with many government agencies and now many exchanges. Remember, another international body oversight committee is the FATF, a regulatory oversight committee from the G20, issued regulations last June for cryptocurrencies, digital assets. To be compliant, the exchanges need to be KYC, AML, CFT, and travel rule compliant like banks by June of this year in just 3 months, almost to the day. Let's keep this moving. Chainalysis, by the way, was recently headed up by Michael Moiser. Michael Moiser came from FinCEN, the U.S. Treasury Department. Michael Moiser 3 weeks ago, after getting everything in place for Chainalysis, has now returned back to FinCEN with a new title as the Deputy Director of Innovation, Digital Innovation. How fitting. While Michael Moiser was actually at Chainalysis, this was revealed to us on October 2nd of 2019 through an article about Ripple's Spring project with Ethan Beard at the head of that. If you go down to the bottom of this, you will see that they announce in here, furthermore, Chainalysis is adding the XRP ledger to its blockchain analytics product. So let me get this straight. Chainalysis is the new customs agent for scanning transactions and getting the necessary transparency needed from sender and receiver. And they've just announced last October that they've made the XRP ledger a part of its service. Okay, now that to me is really strong impression that we are seeing the XRP ledger become that trust layer that everyone else is going to build on in this new digital asset space as a virtual framework. Don't forget about the 2459 protocol that Cryptopolis discovered that is a dedicated registered port, as the other protocols of the internet are dedicated registered ports currently. Now, full disclosure, Bitcoin and Ethereum use protocol ports, but it's an open port. It is not a dedicated registered port like HTTP, FTP, SMTP, and so forth. However, XRP Ledger has its own dedicated registered port, as do the current protocols for the internet. This is from summer of 2019 last year. U.S. lawmakers urged FSOC, a regulatory arm from the U.S. Treasury Department, to designate cloud-based storage systems used by major banks as systemically important financial market utilities. I've covered this on my other channel, Investment Perspectives, heavily, and I'm bringing this together to take us to a question. So stay with me if you've heard this information before. Don't go anywhere. We're not done by a long shot where I'm going to take you today. They cite cloud-based services, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, and they want to see, the congressmen want to see FSOC, the Treasury, dedicate these services that are non-financial banks that work with banks to be deemed systemically important to the financial system. Well, to note, these three banks are these three cloud services based services are working with Ripple. To note, RippleNet is largely a cloud-based service with the compliance built into it. Let's keep moving. What I'm showing you here is the ability given to the Treasury by the Dodd-Frank Act to also authorize the council to designate something a financial market utility known as a FMU as systemically important. The council determines that the failure or a disruption to the functioning of the FMU could create or increase the risk of significant liquidity or credit problems spreading among the financial institutions, or markets, and thereby threaten the stability of the U.S. financial system. Designated FMUs will become subject to the heightened prudential and supervisory provisions of Title VIII. It goes on to talk about the safety and soundness and everything else, risk management and so forth that you would expect. My point in this is this. If we, in fact, are seeing the global orchestration, the global collaborative effort to come up with a solution for cross-border payments, remittance fees, liquidity tool, in the face of watching the world systemically shut down the global economy due to a current health event and a financial crisis which existed before it got here, My question is it possible? Because you have to take in mind, if this were to get a domestic ruling here in the States as a SIFMU, a systemically important financial market utility, with the collaboration and the collective effort that is being orchestrated throughout all of the regulatory bodies in the G20, apparently here, it would make sense that the other regulatory agencies in the other countries would obviously give the same designation to the asset. The ledger, the ILP, the XRP ledger, potentially RippleNet as well. And certainly the 3 cloud-based services that were mentioned. But focusing now on the XRP ledger, should it be designated a SIFMU, an FMU? My question is, if it gets that designation, what happens next? This would obviously move this digital asset into a class all on its own. If in fact this is going to be used to serve the liquidity for the world, for the banks, the governments, the payment provider, you name it, I think we all know the drill at this point. But if it is going to be the asset that is chosen to serve liquidity for the world, could we potentially see XRP taken off of the table as far as a traded asset would go? Or would it be a situation where you have to be an accredited investor to be able to trade the asset? Now, I want to remind everybody that XRP has been added to well over 100, probably closer to 150 exchanges at this point over the last couple years. It has seen wide adoption to many exchanges, and obviously banks and businesses. My question is, if they were to deem it systemically important, could we potentially see a price set that would provide a very reliable number? In fact, in the strongest case, you could make an argument that they deem it systemically important, and you're no longer allowed to trade it. You can hold it if you own it. You can sell it if you want, right? But you're not trading it anymore. And maybe maybe they price set it and control it like the interest rate through an international governance consortium to be able to keep it at the right price that the liquidity is in demand for all the time. Maybe they do it every quarter, just like the Fed adjusts the interest rate. Coming back to the other end of the needle, maybe we see a price set on the asset and then they let it run freely and keep the market open. But I have to ask everybody out here in the digital asset space, I think it's highly likely that this asset does become designated. I feel very strongly about it, in fact. Where does this go? Let's just assume for a second that it does get the designation. What are the implications of it becoming systemically important? Are they going to allow this asset to be freely traded after it gets a designation of systemically important, a financial market utility? So systemically important to the financial stability of the economy that they would allow free trade to this asset? All right, guys, I'm going to leave it right there. I hope in some way I've inspired the conversation. I hope that we're looking at things that I still believe are absolutely plausible, and what the implication would mean to me personally for price of the asset, no matter which way it goes, is very, very good in my mind. In the case that I'm suggesting here, I think that it would be the most, for me at my age and what I've invested in our portfolio and what we're looking at, it would be the best case scenario for me in my mind, because you're talking about the most reliable, fastest settling liquid asset on the planet at that point. The safest investment you could ever own. Only ever receiving upward pressure, not down. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. Again, if you like this content, please make sure you share it on the social platforms you're on. Tell everybody. Let's get them here to the new channel. Let's have a conversation about this, and let's keep this going. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.